Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and I'm back with another layout for Peartree Cutfiles. And this time I'm using one of the new June release Cutfiles. It's called Honeycomb, and it's a gorgeous hexagon pattern that has a few really cute little bees on. So I've cut it from smooth white cardstock, and I've pulled out a few bits there. I'm just showing you that I want to use on this layout. So I've got some perspectives from Bramble Fox, some sequins from Mum Scraps, and a few of my paints that I've pulled out. So this is a shimmerz Inklings. It's called Minor 49er, and it's a lovely sparkly gold. But at some point I've got black in mine, and it's just now really dirty and not very pretty at all. So instead of using that, I've swapped it out for my metallic gold acrylic paint. I've just added a bit to some acetate and watered it down, and now I'm painting it directly onto my cardstock, onto my cut file whilst it's still on the mat, and that's just to help it keep its shape. So I've not added any gesso to my background. If I'm perfectly honest, I don't like the stuff. I don't like how it makes my pages warp, and it makes my mixed media look almost kind of chalky or pastel. It really dulls down the bright look, so I'm not a fan of using it. Unless I'm using loads and loads of water on a background, I tend not to worry about adding gesso. So like I said, this is just going straight onto my background. And I'm just using the gold to paint all of the hexagon pieces, and where you can see I've left gaps, that's just where the little bumblebees are. So I will come back in a minute and paint those with some different colours. So I've gone a bit different today, and I'm working with a black background, which I don't often do, but I really wanted the gold tones on the layout to really pop, so black was definitely going to help do that better. So whilst I've got the gold paint on my acetate there, I've just put my cut file to side to dry, and I'm using a paintbrush and adding some of the gold as splatters to that background. Just going mad and adding loads, and also painting my desk as I always do. Now I've actually got a pizza box that I used to use for mixed media. I'd put the layout in the box to add my splatters to prevent my desk getting covered, but I've obviously got lazy and stopped worrying about that. So now I'm going to add some white splatters on top, and this is probably the only time you'll see me using white gesso. I find it gives a truer white splatter than my white acrylic paint. Because the acrylic paint soaks into the background, it kind of takes on the colour of the background where you can see it through the paint, whereas gesso by nature is a primer, so it sits on top of the cardstock. So rather than soaking into that black, it's sat on the surface and dried a much truer white colour. So that is, like I said, the only time I tend to use white gesso is for white splatters. So now I've swapped back over, I've popped my background aside to dry. I'm coming in to get some colour on the rest of my cut file. So this is a shimmerz Creamies, I think this one is. It's called Dandelion. I just added a bit of water to the pot to activate it, and I'm painting just the bodies of the bumblebees. Obviously I'm aware bumblebees are black and kind of yellow stripes, so I'm painting them yellow because my hope is that when I then lift this and pop it over the black background, where the negative pieces have been removed, the black will show through the spaces, so it will give the butterflies, the bumblebees, the appearance of being black and yellow striped. Now I'm working on the wings. This is a shimmerz Creamies again, I think, and it's called Seashells. Bit of a tongue twister, I've struggled to say that one. It hasn't really got a colour, it's more of a just kind of shimmery paint. So rather than adding colour to the wings, it's just adding a bit of shimmer, which is all I really wanted. I didn't want to leave them unpainted because I think they'd look a bit flat then, being the only thing not painted. So I've just used that for the wings, and whilst doing so I realised that there was a couple of bits of the honeycomb pattern that I had missed. So I'm just having to come back in with the gold and just fill in those pieces. And then with the black, I'm painting the heads and the antennae of the bees. And I was very impatient. I didn't let the wings dry first. So that bottom bee on the right there, you'll notice that the black started bleeding into the wing. If I'd used gesso, I would have been able to have mopped that up much easier than I did. But obviously I don't use gesso, so I've just had to mop it up the best I can, but it's only a little run and it's not too obvious once the whole layout is put together. It wasn't bad enough to bother me, so yeah, that's another thing that gesso can be good for, is if you change your mind or something runs or lands where you don't want it, it's much easier to remove it with a bit of water or tissue from the background. So a little hint for you there, but yeah, I'm afraid it's still not enough to make me want to use gesso. So I'm just drying that background off now. It's not fully dry. You'll notice I'm using the heat gun on the front and back of the cardstock, and that's just to help prevent warping. I find when I use the gun just on the front, the corners of the page always start to curl up and warp and go a bit wavy. So by heating the front and the back, it kind of prevents that a little bit. And you can see how pretty and shimmery everything is looking now. So now I need to get my cut file off the background. I've used my heat gun to dry it. There was a little bit that wasn't quite dry enough, so you'll see that it starts coming off really easy. And I go faster and faster because, like, yes, it's working. And there was one bit that wasn't quite dry, so I did end up ripping a part of it, but I had to just bring the gun back in just to dry that a bit more, and then it came off easy. And you'll notice when it's off that it's barely warped at all, and that's because I painted it whilst it was still stuck on my mat. If I had peeled this off and then painted it, I dare say it would have warped really badly and would have been quite difficult to work with, so it was much easier keeping it on the mat. So I've printed my photo in 6x4, and the idea I had was to back part of the cut file with my photo. I intended to just cut a few of the bits out to leave 3 hexagons for my photo to back. I got a bit happy with my scissors and ended up cutting 4 out. So I do have to do a little bit of surgery here with my cut file to stick that hexagon back together. And then I just take some time once that's dry to trim around my photo so that it just fills the 3 hexagons. And there we go, as if by magic, it's all stuck back together. And whilst off camera, I've added some foam to the back of the cut file. So it's a sheet of A4 adhesive black foam, and I've cut it in really thin strips and just gone all the way around all the hexagons, and then just put some larger squares behind the photo. You'll notice I've left 3 of the hexagons without any foam, and that's because I want to turn those into sequin shaker pockets. So I'm using a bit of sort of the negative part of the cut file, one of the hexagon shapes from my mat, just to roughly draw around the hexagon shape 3 times using a pen, and then I'm cutting them out slightly slightly larger than the hexagons, so that I can stick those in place, and then they will form the first layer of my shaker pocket. I'm using glossy accents to get these stuck down, so I'm going to put the acetate in place, and then I'm going to put some heavy objects on it and weigh it down a bit whilst I go and collect my little boy from school, just to make sure that it holds, because the last thing you want is all your shaker pockets coming apart at a later date, because you'll lose all your sequins then, and nobody wants that. So always make sure everything is well sealed and dry with shaker pockets before moving on. So obviously back from the school run now, and I've pulled out 2 sequin mixes by Spiegel Mum Scraps. This one here is called Lost in the Pages, and it's gorgeous, one of my favourites. It's got yellows, greens, blues, kind of iridescent pinks and clear. I think there's even a silver one in there, or silver one or two. I've got no blue in my photo though, so I do pull out the blue and the iridescent pink ones. So I'm just using the yellow and green. And then the second packet there is called Into the Woods, and again it's another of my favourites. It's got different kind of browns, kind of almost got like a wood grain pattern on them with black and gold. They're absolutely gorgeous. But those 2 mixes between them that I've mixed in the bowl now, I've got all the colours that are in my photo, so they work really well together. So my acetate is stuck down. I'm now going around the edge of that with the craft foam to kind of give myself a little well for my sequins to sit in, and then I'm just going to use my fingers and sprinkle those in. I don't want to overfill them because I do want them to have some movement. So although on the camera here they do look like they're quite full, once they're backed and I've turned it all over, they actually have quite a bit of empty space so that the sequins have room to move. And I'm going to back those with black cardstock. White just really wouldn't have worked, you'd have just seen the big white hexagon on my background. So I'm going to back them with black so that it would just look like it's part of the background that they're sat against. Again, just draw around that hexagon and cut it out slightly larger. And then I'm using a quick dry glue here. This stuff's brilliant. It's fast drying tacky glue, so whereas I would normally use glossy accents for this, I knew I wanted to carry on working straight away, so I've used this one instead because it dries much quicker and it does have a strong hold as well. So again, just trying to weigh everything down to make sure it sticks for a few minutes, and then as if by magic a few minutes later I have some shaker pockets, and I love how those look with this cut file, and I think they work really well with my photo as well. So continuing on with my background here, I've got this hexagon stamp that is similar to the cut file, looks like honeycomb, and I'm applying embossing liquid to it with a dabber, and I'm going to apply that to 2 corners of my layout. Then once it's on the cardstock, I'm pouring over some bonding powder and then heating that with my heat gun, exactly as you would do with embossing powder. But this stuff gets really hot, and then I'm going to add some foil to it, and I'm using my fingers just to rub that foil on. Leave it for a few seconds to cool off, and then when you pull the foil off, you've got that gorgeous foil imprint on the background now, and you can kind of see on the foil there where it's pulled over, where it's stripped the foil off of that and popped it onto my background for me. And I love these foils, they are super cool and really metallic and sparkly as well. So like I said, I'm going to do this in 2 corners, so 2 opposite corners. Just have to work it in sections because my foil is, I think it's only about 10 centimetres wide, this one. And I do it that way so that I don't waste it. I could do it lengthways, but I would end up wasting a lot more. And you can see there how shimmery and sparkly that is. And really simple to do as well. It's not difficult at all. You just need the right equipment. So I've also added a few areas of that to the centre of my background where it will kind of peek out behind my photo. And now I can get my cut file stuck down. So again, I'm using this fast drying tacky glue because I want to carry on working straight away. Normally I have to scrap my layouts in kind of bits and pieces whilst my little boy is either sleeping or at preschool. I think I made this layout on a day where he was at school all day, so it gave me a while to get going. So I didn't want to have to sit around waiting for everything to dry. So that was just me weighing everything down with a pizza box for a bit, just to make sure it was all stuck down before I carried on. Now I want to add my title, which is Be Yourself, and this is an acrylic perspective by Bramble Fox, and it comes with a really cute little bumblebee. You get it in both colours. You get it in this kind of, I guess it's like a mustardy colour, gold mustardy. It's a bit of a weird one, but it works really, really well with this layout. And you also get it in black as well, but the black I was a bit worried wouldn't have shown up against my background. So I've gone with the mustard colour. I've stuck both acrylics down on the right hand side there, and now I've pulled out the Lost in the Pages sequin. No, it's not, it's Into the Woods, sorry. Into the Woods sequin mix again, and I'm just adding the odd sequin here and there in the corners of the honeycomb hexagons with glossy accents, and then I'm going to come in with some Nouveau drops to add a drop either side of the sequin. I pulled out a few Nouveaux just trying to decide which colour would be better, and in the end I go with, it's a Nouveau vintage drop, and the colour is called Yellow Brick Road, and it is again perfect colour for my little boy's jumper. So I'm just doing a dot of that either side of the sequin, kind of like to make little corners. And I don't really add much more. I don't want to overly embellish this layout because there's a lot going on, even though there's not much on the page. Just the way I've done the splatters in the background and the cut file's quite large, it does take up quite a bit of room. And make it look a little bit busy, so I don't want to add too much more. So I just add a few more of the sequins and Nouveau drops, and then I think the final thing I add, and this was off camera because I'd already turned my camera off, is a couple of the Peartree Pieces, and they're from the black and gold set. So I add 2 of the black and metallic gold stripy ones just either side of my title there, and you can see those on the close-ups. And that's the layout finished. So like I said, not really heavily embellished, but there is a lot going on the layout still. So you can still achieve a full looking layout without actually adding too much, and that's the beauty of Cutfiles. So thank you very much for joining me today. I will leave you with some close-ups. I'll pop a link in the description box to the Peartree shop where you can find this cut file, and also to the Peartree Cutfiles Facebook group. So if you're not already a member, do hop on over. You get loads of fun and inspiration, and we love to see you share your layouts with your pieces or your stencils or your cut files. So like I said, I'll leave the links in the description box below, and I'll see you next time.